operating system of the universe. It works. We tell you to try it and you go on to it because it fucking works. And what happens if we all do it? Everyone in this room decides to take control of reality.
Chaos Magic News, with support from the Mason and Melinda Lang Foundation, presents the Jack Frostcast, an exploration of Grant Morrison's seminal work of occult fiction, The Invisibles, through the lenses of avid fans and newcomers, writers, artists, psychonauts, and perhaps most importantly, practicing magicians. I'm Harry Sunday, your host for as long as you'll have me. With me is the rest of my invisible cell. We have the lovely Lucian.
Hello. Are you getting enough oxygen?
We have Theodora Sphinx.
Good evening, callers.
We have the ever delightful Laverna.
Hello. Make sure you're drinking water or I will find you.
And one of many, we have King Mob.
Hey y'all, how you folks doing?
We're continuing with the Down and Out in Heaven and Hell story arc. We're on issue 3 now, right?
Yes, we are.
No, we are on episode 2 of the Down and Out arc.
We're in part 2, issue 3.
Part 2.
There we go.
We will squabble over the technicalities later, but we're at issue 3. After this brief intermission, Jack has, well, not even Jack yet, Dane has been taken under the wing of Mad Tom, who, despite Dane's better efforts, is slowly inducting him into the magical world. He takes him to the underground London. He shows him the secret city. He starts telling him all these things, the blue mold, and it's all leading up to what? Probably something dramatic. When we left off, the second issue just ended with Dane waking up, seeing that Tom was gone, and he's being confronted by people once again dressed up like the traditional British fox hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Now, worth noting that anyone could probably pick this out. These aren't the same people as before. They don't have the big mustaches, don't look all bully. These are, oddly enough, they look perhaps more like the members of the Archons, or the servants of the Archons, because they all have these blacked out glasses.
Yeah, it's the same glasses from Guilt, and that kind of makes it more sinister because it's not just one group that's doing these fox hunts. Dane's like, shit, multiple, this is game stalking.
Yeah, but then somebody's hair goes and gives them away.
If you can read between the lines, or if you're just paying attention, you have a funny feeling that it's like these, something's wrong here. Either the hair or the lack of hair sort of says that maybe something's wrong here.
If you're really paying attention, you notice that, we've seen a person of color, we've seen someone with red hair, and we've seen a bald person, and, what do we have here?
Yeah, but that's a bit spoilery.
Well, let's just ask Theo, because they were the one that hasn't read this before. Could you immediately pick up on that?
Yeah, actually, it was Ragged Robin that gave it away immediately.
Not King Mob, or well, yeah, he's identified as King Mob now already.
I mean, villainous bald guys aren't exactly new, but
pretty
Ragged
nondescript.
Robin's hair immediately just like it's there. It is hard not to notice.
They all also look very uncomfortable in these uniforms, whereas the other people looked like very much so at home.
Well, they looked like British stereotypes. They look like British aristocracy stereotypes, and these look more like, again, if you're paying attention, you notice it. Like, I mean, I mentioned, person of color because boy was what threw it off for me, because I was like, wait a minute, we were a bunch of nondescript kind of British white people, and now we have somebody with some melanin going on here, and then Ragged Robin next to it. We're like, well, there you go.
And possibly more notable, the fact that they leave Dane alive. They menace him. He goes, "You're a bunch of fucks. How dare you hurt my friend?" He goes to attack them, but they, instead of killing him, like you'd imagine, or telling him like, "Hey, start running," they do say, "Hey, go put up some fight," but rather than emphasizing like, "No, we're going to kill you," you need to start running. They just tell him, we can kill you whenever you want. Your life does not even belong to you. And then they disappear.
One day, when you least expect it, we'll be there. Even your life doesn't belong to you. You're nothing. Nothing at all. Which, foreshadowing.
So Dane is beside himself. You actually see him tearing up and he's bleeding from his nose and all this stuff. And he goes around and then Tom just shows up and he's like, oh, it's all good.
Well, he's reaching down to pour Tom off the ground, having been beaten by all these people. And then he realizes it's just a coat.
I suppose if they wanted to really sell it, they could have roughed Tom up a little bit, but he's old. Maybe he couldn't have handled it.
Well, I think the implication is that, like, they, at least, well, the way I took it at least was I thought that it was supposed to be, they thought they were beating up Tom, but Tom once again skipped out on him, became invisible, just like he did before, That was how I read it at least. Maybe it's not important.
I have a theory about this, but it involves spoilers, so I don't want to skip too far forward. But yeah, I will. I think this was Tom's plan. I think he was like, hey, y'all, show up and beat this little shit up, and I'm going to bounce.
Well, it's more important than that. It's not to menace him and scare him. It's to show Dane, or at least to perhaps if Dane had just ran, maybe that would have said something. But instead, what did he do? You hurt my friend. I'm going to kill you. I'm fighting.
Yeah, I was being flippant. Like, I think this is like a test. Tom's like, show up and deal with this guy, and we're going to see what happens. Because Tom's the one that's initiating him. It's not the rest of the Invisible's creep. So Tom, at the end of the day, is the one that's coming up with the plan to
bring him in, the ordeals, as it were.
Exactly, yeah.
Trials.
And of course, Tom, once it's revealed that Tom's fine, calls Dane out on what we were calling him out on last time. Like, you're big so-and-so. You don't care about nobody, do you? And he's like, well, no, I don't. But clearly he fucking does.
And this is also where we're introduced to the very notable icon, at least in the very early Invisibles. It doesn't, the placement of it doesn't come up except for a number of times. It's almost the symbol of initiation into the Invisibles. We see the blank badge. Yep. He just picks the badge off the ground. It's a plain white circular badge. If for anyone interested, you can find them very easily. They'll run you about 75 cents.
Mob, do you have your badge?
Yeah, it's right here in front of me.
I'm wearing mine too.
Oh, I left mine in the other room.
Slacker.
I know. Should I go get it?
No, we've held up this enough.
Something here that I want to remark on too, because this is something that I took note of, is Tom says, like a son to me, and Dane responds, fuck off, Tom. And Dane's got daddy issues, so Tom invoking himself as a father figure, as a paternal figure to this young man, and Dane immediately just shutting him down is noteworthy.
Yeah, I mean, that is the best way to get someone with daddy issues to shut you down, is to be like, you're like a son to me.
It's not even the first time he's done it. He's in the I believe the previous issue, he makes a comment about like, you're a boy, needs a father or needs a dad or something like that. So
yeah,
that's right. He's had Dane's number since day one. It's just now he's making it very, very obvious. He's like, yeah, you're like a son to me.
He's upping the ante. He's like provoking harder. And this is something you see as the chapter continues. Tom keeps pushing and he needles a little bit more directly and a little more directly.
It just keeps going until it becomes very explicit very fast.
Speaking of needling and very explicit very fast, in the next scene, we get to see more direct magic spooky shit.
Oh, we also get to see Boy again.
Yeah, Boy's out for a jog.
Oh, yeah.
If you hadn't put two and two together beforehand, it shows you again. These members of this cell have been orbiting around the entire time. Mostly what we're getting is more conversations, things going on. Dane is talking like, what are we going to do? We can't wander the streets forever, which is the absolute wrong thing to say to Tom. He's been doing it forever. But he mentions time. It was winter, now it's spring. I can't remember what I've even been doing. So it makes you question, how long has Dane been on the streets? When we see him in the last issue, he's maybe been on the streets for what? A couple days, maybe a couple weeks at the most.
Well, I think the implication at that point was it's been at least a month.
Oh, no.
'cause,
Oh,
like,
he
you know,
was-
well, his hair has grown out actually, so it's definitely longer than a month.
And he's getting like sickly looking too. So,
But that can
Yeah.
happen very fast when you don't know how to survive, which is the entire point.
right,
Dane
but your
had-
hair doesn't grow faster if you can't survive.
If you're dehydrated, it does.
Well, no, that
look at
makes
me.
it
Ooh.
like that's a corpse thing. That's not a hair growth.
That was beneath me. I'm sorry. But the important thing is Dane goes around kicking these pigeons, and Tom is trying to tell him about magic, as particularly the notions of city magic. Cities have their own gods and spirits, electric-eyed cart gods. He discusses the notions of totem animals too, pigeons being sacred, rats being sacred, and Dane is just not hearing it. He says, who cares about no pigeon? Then we see probably the second explicit use of magic from Tom, where he just thwaps him on the back of the head, which even if you were a kung fu master, you're not dropping somebody into a hypnotic trance with a hit. This was clearly like a magical act. And then he goes, "Let me take your eyes," in a very Don Juan-esque. I love Don Juan. I love the Carlos Castaneda books. Another interesting use of fiction as magic, in my opinion, at least most of it. But he turns him into a bird, as it were, the same way that Don Juan turns Carlos Castaneda into a crow. He says, I'm gonna put your eyes in this pigeon. Dane starts seeing the world from this warped, strange perspective, flying around, all of this stuff. Notably, this sort of eldritchian, almost Cthulhuoid monster over, I'm not sure what this building is. Does anybody know off the rip what this building is supposed to be?
I want to say it's Parliament.
It looks like the Old Bailey, yeah.
Well, it's a church building or it's a government building, clearly, and it appears to have a cross on top, but it might be a weather vane, and I don't know enough about the layout of London to say for sure.
Kind of looks like the Old Bailey.
Jamie is going to pull this up for us. It's not.
Oh, it's not. No, it's not.
It's not one of like the royal palaces. It's not. Perhaps it's nothing. I'm sure that
not spoilers for what will happen at the end of this, but I thought it was where we see the phone call later.
Is it?
Oh no, that's a real building. I know what it is. Like it's not Parliament. It's like a few blocks away, and it's basically where the government has its like offices. Oh, shit, hang on.
It's not the Lancaster House. It's not the Royal Courts of Justice. It's not the... I don't even know how to pronounce that. Is it Portcullis House?
Portcullis?
No, I thought it's not Central Criminal Court. It's not Birmingham Town Hall. I don't know. We could spend all fucking day doing this.
I agree. But
Welcome to our new podcast about the architecture of London.
You are definitely going to come in after you edit this and be like, all right, listeners, we discovered what building it was. It was this.
In fact, putting it right here. Okay.
I think it's actually it's possibly St. Paul's Cathedral, but I don't know what the significance of that would be in this case. If it was something like, ooh, it's Buckingham Palace, it would be a little on the nose, but you'd understand.
I think it is St. Paul's.
I think it's the only building I saw that had that sort of domed top. But
spoilers for like that very last volume.
Don't say it. Don't say it.
It turns out that Jack Frost is St. Paul.
Oh no, I was wrong. I've actually found out what it is.
What is it?
It's Winchester Cathedral. It's bringing me down.
Boo.
That was beneath me. I'm sorry. Well, the important part is that through this altered perspective, Dane has a very powerful magical experience. He sees an embodiment of the archons again. This name, it's never named or brought up. It seems somewhat Cthulhuoid, at least very Lovecraftian sort of, especially in the idea of its existing right behind the veil. While this is going on, Tom lets us in on the secret of the cities and city magic, what cities are as they were. And he talks about how humans were originally homeostatic, existing in self-sustaining equilibrium, but then the city virus, as it were, took in, and it starts producing more cities, because that's what a virus does. Use up all the available resources, hoping to eventually use up everything in the host and fire something off somewhere else. Almost describing the nature of progress, the nature of capitalism, as it were, or at least the ever-increasing development of human society and technology, and how the end goal for a lot of schools of thought or ideals for humanity does involve going out, conquering the stars. And what are we going to do? We're going to build more things when we get there. And it is almost this notion of we're going to devour ourselves. He describes, in waking dreams, I've seen cemetery planets circling abandoned stars like mausoleums, silent and dead, every building a headstone. He's painting this picture of this city virus, this embodiment of progress and continuation and consumption of consuming of resources to build something new, and says that this is ultimately inevitable, I suppose, once the virus is there. Like, he doesn't say, oh, we have to go back to living in the caves. What he says is that the wizard, the sorcerer, sees this and makes a pact with the city. It makes a pact with this ephemeral or this entity that's out there, and that you can make deals with them and take some of that power. This seems to be the crux of why Tom is so obsessed with the notions of this city that exists beneath the city and things like that. He is a city magician. All of his methods seem to be based around the secret places, the living on the fringes, turn yourself invisible in front of the police. And then he makes the final point of saying, the reason you can't remember how much time has passed is because I've been doing this to you over and over and over again. I've been giving you these magical teachings while you're in these trance states, and that's why you don't remember how much time has passed. That's why you don't remember any of these teachings, because they are beneath the surface.
Yeah, you skipped over a couple things I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, like, just holy shit, we just blew through 4 pages at once.
Apologies.
One of them is, like, you can tell why Grant Morrison went after the Wachowskis at the Time Brothers over The Matrix, because a lot of this sounds exactly like Agent Smith.
Oh, I mean, it's so much worse than that. Well, we get to the point where we see, you could compare panels that happen later in the comic to scenes that happen. You're like, oh, this is just shot for shot.
All right, well, seeds planted right here.
Yeah.
There's a really interesting notion of finding magic words. The ways cities talk strangely in reflections and magic words, and he uses ixat specifically, and it's taxi backwards. But, you see that in a reflection in a puddle, and that takes on new context, new meaning. The language of cities that is not quite human language, but is reflective of it. Traffic recordings played at night communicate the city's voice. The way he talks about how to communicate with cities in a way that is not necessarily rooted in normal human language, but still is bridging it with human language, is really interesting.
I don't believe we've gotten here yet, but it isn't particularly spoilery, so I'll say he mentions looking for a sigil in totally random patterns, things like that. And it is the notion of magic being an omnipresent force that is, like he says in a previous issue, not good or bad, just ready to be used by whoever is able to use it.
That's right after the little piece that I wanted to talk about. Obviously, because Dane's still on this poor fucking spiel that many magicians in our modern day are still on. Like, did that really happen? Was I really a pigeon? Was it just a dream?
I wanted to touch on that. Like, I was reading earlier Pop Magic, and one of Grant's suggestions was like, just get in the zone and walk around and approach everything as a magical experience. And I feel like that's what the pigeon thing represented. Dane's just like, I'm kind of just seeing the world as it is. I mean, it was taken to a more extreme, but yeah, Dane was just, again, sort of, he was a pigeon, but he was just kind of roaming around and seeing the world around him.
Again, I find the parallels to the Don Juan Carlos Castaneda relationship very, very explicit here, because it's the idea of, did I actually turn into a crow? And it's like, you're so hung up on trying to square everything and put these in these categories and boxes of real experiences, unreal experiences. That's not real. This was real. I can say this actually happened, but this was just a dream, a hallucination, a this, a that. And it's very, very much the experience of early magic people.
Morrison slams it into perspective here with, Dane is investigating, like, it's just a dream, right? Are dreams real? And Tom says, did you ever hold the hand of the man who reads the news every night on the telly?
I love that line.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's a great line. It's like,
line.
you know what? That's well, we can assume that guy exists out there, but
It's a fucking dream. You can't touch it, can you? It's like, yeah, but I feel like that's something, especially when you can combine that with the rest of the things that he's talking about, all of these sorts of, what Theo's touching on about the weird way you can communicate with cities. They talk about derive in the earlier issues, the wandering through cities so they appear in kind of new lights and such. It all gets linchpinned into this idea because it's the exact sort of thing that you as a contemporary, rational, secular person would probably respond to all of these things. Like, oh, well, it's just kind of weird stuff. Like, it's a dream, it's a trance, it's imagination and such. And Tom's got the simple answer of like, how much of your world is already that? And you just take it for granted.
Yeah.
The amount of things that we interact with on a daily basis that are not physical. Can someone point to me and show me where is the physical structure of, say, the government, you could always argue that, like, well, there's people that'll come and kick the shit out of you, but no one's making them do that.
Who are y'all guys on the Discord?
Pardon?
Who are y'all guys on the Discord? You're basically just words on the computer. It's the same thing.
Oh, yeah, true.
Well, who are you? Who are you right now? Do you know?
Right now I'm a
That question is good on a lot of levels.
right now y'all are just the voices coming into my headphones. So
Sound oscillations.
In a world of AI now where things like that can be generated, I mean, for everyone out there, I could be a delightful program that is aping the voice of someone you know. And if you're not being particularly studious, you might not even notice.
What about something odder? What about the strange way that sound waves over a say an audio recording can transform into what sounds like voices or chanting? Is that real? Or is that simply a hallucination?
a hallucination being had by a magic dust computer program. The fucking naming conventions on this, man. I was just like trying to discuss these circumstances when we're literally applying magic dust to audio.
Well, and just in another simple way here, all of us are talking about characters in a comic book written well over 2-3 decades ago almost. And yet, I don't know about y'all, but we're sitting here discussing them, talking about how they're thinking, how they're feeling, what they're trying to express. But they're not, they're just drawings on a page with text.
The notion of a fictional character asking what's real, yeah, I suppose that shouldn't be lost on us.
Just to keep it moving in a certain way, the other thing I wanted to touch on real quick, and I'm sure y'all will have just as much to say about this. Tom asked him about Harmony House again. Hey, remember Harmony House? It feels like it was fucking years ago already.
Yeah.
And what does Dane say?
They don't need experiments to make you do as they want.
And who is they?
Well, the Archons in this case, although I don't think Dane's actually run into that name yet.
The dark forces who would rule this planet. And an interesting little touch there, because Tom doesn't say the dark forces that control this planet. He's saying the dark forces that would control this planet, that would rule this world.
Yeah.
If they would, if there weren't things trying to stop them. They will attempt, they are trying, but they haven't won yet. And then we get a very oddball scene that doesn't become nearly as relevant till far later in the story, much in the way that Dane saw John Lennon and Stu Sutcliffe, right?
Stu Sutcliffe, yeah.
Oh, boy. Well, we see another glimpse into the past of two people that are clearly far displaced from the time period that we're currently in. And Dane, and this time Dane doesn't seem to be aware of them, but Tom is looking over his shoulder and looking and even speaking some words in referential to the scene going on. But then there's the statement, surely you're not afraid of an old man and a little boy. And you have to wonder if it's related to what they're talking about. Can these two people see Tom and Dane sitting on the swing, or if this is something separate? There seems to be a weird recognition from Tom, but not much else. But it is, again, that seeding of things that will become much more relevant later.
It's interesting that you saw that as clearly displaced from time, because I actually can't really tell. It just kind of they look dressed up.
Look at the wardrobe.
Well, yeah, but this is England. They're all kind of stuffy.
So that was my, and granted, I know what's going on, but I'm quite sure that even the first time I saw this was screaming to me another example of that sort of time displacement.
There was something in the language use that clued me in. Her outfit in particular was like, okay, we're definitely not in step with time once again. But there was something in the language that also did it.
It's Chekhov's gun. They literally, they dropped phrases like hand of glory, and then things just go on. Like, Grant's too good of an author to do something like that. So you already know that there's time dilation going on. So, Tom's trying to get this little shit initiated into the Invisibles, but then there's also the implication that Tom also has his own shit going on.
There is something in the way these panels are drawn through this section explicitly that kind of indicates there's something covert at work. Like, the way they're focused on Tom is really specific.
Yeah, you're completely
Dane
right
is
about
swinging, that. But the panels are focused on Tom talking while Dane is swinging.
Yeah, he's always in the center of the shot.
Yeah, and if you didn't know that something was going on, that one panel of Tom looking over his shoulder is kind of the big indicator, like, oh, hey, Tom's not just a crazed initiator figure. This is probably the most human moment we have from Tom, actually, in a weird way. I hadn't thought of that.
Tom has his own life and arc outside of just initiating Dane.
Yeah, he's not an archetypal figure no matter what else it looks like is happening. Like, he's stepping into that role of initiator, but he's deeper than that.
It's the only time that he looks sad.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just projecting onto him, but he looks sad or concerned, at least, when every other time he is playing this fool. He is this happy-go-lucky madman, and this is the one time he's looking like something might actually be wrong, Tom.
So the other thing too I want to bring up is that line that he says, Frateretto calls me and tells me Nero's an angler in the lake of darkness. That gave me pause, because I was like, Frateretto? It's the name of the devil mentioned in the Christian tradition, but specifically in King Lear it's used.
Oh yeah, that's Tom all over.
Yeah, and it's little brother.
It's like, isn't he mostly quoting Edgar?
Yeah, most of Tom's quotes are directly lifted from King Lear.
That's wonderful, and I love that so much.
Shakespeare expert, King Mob, everyone.
Hey!
Oh yeah, that's why fucking 4 years in college will get you a job on that niche occult podcast.
So we're doing the King Lear cast next?
Oh, this is the quote. Cities full of magic, neither bad nor good, just there to be used.
McDonald's locations, Mark Mammon.
Okay, real quick. I just have to throw this out there because that's something that you see in the big, Satanist Luciferian conspiracy wings now. You still see that, the whole, if you look at the streets in DC, they form pentagrams and stuff like that.
I think there was one floating around about Outback Steakhouses forming a pentagram somewhere in Texas.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, but no, the DC streets do form pentagrams.
Well, and so do the Outback Steakhouses, but there's not a pentagram. It's a star. It's Lone Star, Texas.
Oh, well then.
I think in the way that the invisible serves as a repository for a lot of the fringe occult and conspiracy ideas of the time. We're talking late 80s into the early 90s, then through the 90s. It is very much a time capsule of a certain period, the same way that Illuminatus can represent a time capsule for a certain period. We see this nowadays, and it is very kooky. And it's not that it wasn't kooky back then, but at least it wasn't so trite. It was maybe a bit more, if not acceptable, at least the novelty of it said a bit more than it does now.
Whereas now we're just like, oh yeah, Chidi saw the time knife. Yes, we've all seen it.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, you get a million maps right at your fingertips. You used to have to get an atlas to do this sort of thing. And, God forbid that they're actually marking all the McDonald's in London.
You don't even want to know what the Nandos spell out.
But we do get Tom explaining what's going on here. Well, as close to explaining as we'll get at this point. There's a war going on. For a long, long time, behind the world sometimes people hear distant rumblings or glimpse bomb light reflected in the faraway windows. On one side, there's the Invisibles. On the other, well, it's not my job to tell you. You'll find out soon.
And this is where we also get that the implication that the magic has been planted deep where it'll do the most use, and to activate it, he has to talk about Jack Frost.
And not only that, but this is the second time where he says, tell me about Jack Frost. And he says, why do you keep going on about that?
But we do get the explanation of it now.
Well, yeah, here's the response where he says, all right, I've told you what you need to know. Tell me about Jack Frost. And he says, it's just some shit my mom used to say when I was little. When I got into trouble and I had no dad, she would say Jack Frost would come and get me. There's also a somewhat subtle hint here as we see the hieroglyphics that are now lining the city walls as they're walking. We have once again transported from the exoteric London to the esoteric London, I suppose. This is now magical territory, and it's told through an interesting visual cue. Even though there's not quite so much magic going on in this scene as, say, when someone swapped eyes with a pigeon. He brings up Jack Frost as almost a substitute parental figure, almost like the shadow father that was going to come around and get you if you were bad. But then he's like, it makes you feel kind of safe to have him around, doesn't it?
And what's in the hieroglyphics there?
Well, right off the bat, there's Kefra lifting the sun, and far left middle panel.
Back to the beetle imagery.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can't read hieroglyphs, but that immediately popped to me.
I don't know how relevant it is, but we've already said that everything's sort of relevant and not relevant, I guess. But at the very bottom there, that's the hat of Osiris.
Rebirth, yeah.
Well, not even that. Yeah. It's a father figure.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even connect that.
I suppose maybe the owl. The only thing I can think of is either the owl of Minerva, which isn't the right type of owl, or the horned owl, which is more associated with sort of Illuminati, Bohemian Grove sort of stuff. But still,
they're not what they seem.
Yeah, but there's still sort of an initiatory aspect that might be taken there. Or it could just be texture, I suppose, of just throw something up there.
I mean, yeah.
Hey, owls look cool.
Owls are cool. It's hard to argue that. Jack once again derides all of this by saying the one thing we've been bagging on him this entire time for, oh, whatever, it's not like he's real, he's just in my head.
Yeah, it doesn't bother him.
Oh yeah, that's true. It's the two things that we've been bagging on Dane for. It's I don't care, it doesn't bother me, and it's not real.
What's that wink tweet? I'm not mad. Please don't tell them that I'm mad.
And here we take a very stark left turn where in the midst of it, he lays out Dane's problem. Jack Frost, he's around and he makes you feel tough when things are going bad. He makes you feel hate instead of uncertainty and fear. At the very least, his presence initiates a response in Jack of like, I don't care, it doesn't matter. He's able to maybe by Jack Frost being around, it gives him something to focus on of just, I don't care, it doesn't matter, nothing's going on. But the biggest turn is that immediately Tom smacks the shit out of him.
What we've been waiting for this entire fucking series so far.
The reader, you and I all take a collective finally.
And everybody clapped.
Well, and what's interesting here is that Dane, he does this again. Touch us again. I'll fucking deck you. And this is an interesting thing, partly because like it's again that plurality that steps in, and then he immediately goes back to singularity. But then we immediately see that for all that Jack Frost might have helped him, tap into hate instead of fear, never once has this fucker taught him how to fight. And this has been a recurring theme too, is just every time Dane tries to tough up, it is all bluster, no bite.
Well, you notice, all right, I hadn't thought of this, but every time we see Dane fight, he's by himself. He's alone.
He's by himself and he's attacking a building. He's attacking structures that can't fight back. As soon as he actually has to fight a person.
When he's doing that, he's got his little goons with him. Every time he goes up by himself, he gets his hand smacked. He gets fucking shown that he's not tough. He's not strong.
And meanwhile, Tom is putting on this shot of him with his eyes are just whited out, and he's describing, I'm a tiger in the rain tearing you out of your car. I'm a holy terror. And he's not playing anymore. It's turning on a dime. He goes from this jovial father figure to I am going to kill you. He's mocking him while he beats him. He slaps him around. He throws him to the ground.
Don't like being touched, do ya? Bruises your sensitive skin. And I mean, and it's exactly what it is. He's showing Dane that you've been playing this little tough guy bullshit character, not just the entire time that I've known you, but your entire fucking life. And it's because you aren't shit. You're a boy with daddy issues.
He's been given this boogeyman to emulate. Like, this is the thing to be afraid of, and therefore, if I emulate this thing that I am afraid of, I will become scary too. And this thing is Jack Frost. It is this ice figure. He freezes himself over, and this freezing over plays directly into what Harmony House was also trying to get from him, is emotionlessness and non-responsiveness. And then Tom comes in, and all of his imagery throughout this entire section, everything he's saying is talking about melting him down and burning him. He is the I can't remember the text exactly. I didn't write this down, but it's just
I'll make a puddle out of him.
Yeah, it's very much centered around the idea of forcing him to melt and destroying this frozen state that he has been in, because it's not fucking working.
Yes, Tom is definitely not afraid of Jack Frost, which was what the entire purpose of Jack Frost was about, make people afraid of me. And Tom's just like, all right, look.
Now, I do have one interesting parallel to pull from the foundational chaos magic text of Libernal and Psychonaut. There was a section discussing the nature of exorcism, and Peter Carroll described the process of exorcising a demon, quote unquote, from someone who, in Carroll's vernacular, a demon might represent an autonomous complex that is destructive to the individual that is stuck with it. But the process of mirroring this demon back to the person, of trying to embody this autonomous complex or this demonic presence back to them and forcing them to confront it so that they can break it and shake it off. So Dane is given a boogeyman. He is given Jack Frost as he's a monster that's going to rip you up and he's going to come get you if you're bad. So what does Tom do? Tom becomes a boogeyman. He becomes a monster. He describes this irrational sort of, you can imagine, it wouldn't surprise me if Grant Morrison was asked and he said, oh, the tiger ripping you out of your car? Yeah, I was driving along when I was a kid. I was in the back seat and my parents were driving in the rain, and we stopped, and I thought I saw a tiger, and I was scared that it was going to come rip me out of my seat and just drag me off. He presents, or if not if not embodying it directly, he represents something that is greater. Like, you're scared of Jack Frost. Wait till you fucking see me. I'll burn him up. I'm not afraid of Jack Frost. I'm not afraid of you. I'll show you something to really be afraid of. And he forces Dane to the ground. He beats the hell out of him. He begins drowning him in what is like a little fountain, I think, or maybe just a puddle. And he gives him this diatribe. You think you're an outlaw, but you just do what they want you to do. Cause trouble for a little while, screw some tart, raise more robots, and on and on and on. He basically goes from originally laying out sort of like, here's your daddy issues, and then he goes even further and he says, look, this is what you are. You think you're some rebel, but your ways of fighting against this are really just reinforcing everything you hate.
It's the exact thing we were talking about earlier, right? When we made because we discussed this briefly, specifically around when he was getting into it with what's the teacher's name?
Malky, yes, Malcolm.
Oh, Malcolm thinks that he's trying to help, but he's trying to help in the exact same way that everyone tells you, oh, this is how you're supposed to reach these kids, and so on and so forth. And it goes down to the very baseline of it. Jack Frost is something that his fucking mom put in his head.
Oh,
that's true.
Oh, damn.
Even the thing that makes Dane feel safe is just more robot fucking programming that somebody put in him.
I have a question, and I'm hoping that our expert in the field might be able to say something, but maybe one of you will. Does anyone know anything about the 5 fiends? 5 fiends have been in poor Tom at once: of lust, Abidakut, Habadance, Prince of Dumbness, Mahu of stealing, Modo of murder. Are these references that I'm just not getting?
And it's more direct King Lear quotes.
Maybe. I don't remember like demon names being mentioned in King Lear, but honestly, that's not what I'm super familiar with.
If I recall correctly, when I was reading this, I looked it up. And it is more
absolutely is.
That it is.
I'm a failure at loving Shakespeare. Look, King Lear's not my favorite.
Okay, hold on.
According to Wikipedia, the particular line helped them establish the earliest composition date for the play. So there's your Shakespeare knowledge, because Mob dropped the ball.
Yeah, I will burn your house out.
Apparently, part of the origin of these names comes from a declaration of egregious popish impostures.
Say that 5 times fast.
Which is by Samuel Harsnet.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's really striking me how exceedingly British these early issues are.
The first volume.
Yeah.
And Flibbertigibbet, which I've heard Flibbertigibbet as a word you use for nonsense and gobbledygook. So perhaps gobbledygook is also a fiend.
How do you solve a problem like Maria? That's where I know it from.
Oh my goodness. What a reference. What a reference. Harsnet listed the names of various devils uttered by people who claim to be possessed. So that's where it came from. Huh. And you know what? Back full circle. It was during exorcisms. This was Harsnet's critique of the practice of exorcism, because people would be tormented during them, or they would be playing into what is essentially a large ceremonial performance practice. So they just come up with a name. It comes from somewhere. That is wow. That is something indeed.
Wild.
Your head's like mine, like all of ours.
Yeah, he lists these fiends and says he and Dane and all of us have heads big enough for every god, but we keep filling that cabinet with broken things and sad trinkets, and we play it the same tune and think that's all we are. And he's calling that out. He's saying just like, stop focusing on these small things. Get your head together. You can fit gods in there. You can fit all the gods in there. You have space enough for that. get outside of your limited perspective and fucking pay attention.
And how does Dane respond?
Dane cannot take any of this because he's just going, fuck, I'm fucking dying. I can't fucking breathe. In a way, this is almost more of the seeding of something during a period of imprint vulnerability of this is something down the surface that might trickle in. He's not paying attention to anything Tom is saying because he's getting his ass handed to him. But Tom just says, you're not dying. You're finally living. Feel it, Dane. Be born. Crack open that armor and let the air in. And then the first thing that Dane does is he just starts crying for his dad. He doesn't want his dad to go.
It's probably the first time he's ever been able to admit that to himself.
To deal with the trauma.
We're having another Fight Club moment here too. I'm just like, you're finally living.
Well, who's amongst us hasn't had a couple Fight Club moments in their life?
Valid.
Yeah.
I think that Fight Club makes a great point about how when someone is broken down, they can be programmed to do a lot of really seedy things. That doesn't mean that Tyler Durden was wrong about everything.
Theo, you and I were discussing this off mic, actually. Would you like to take this?
See if I can actually remember the rant. Is basically just like Fight Club is what happens if you listen to the Archons versus Invisibles is what happens when you're actually engaged in rebellion. They're counterpoints, and Fight Club is what's the Fight Club to policeman pipeline. Like if you were really big into Fight Club when you were younger, you're probably a cop now.
That's a really good point.
And think about,
I want to think about that.
and the simplicity of it, right? These are the same techniques. This is like cult programming.
It's the same
shit.
thing and applied in different directions. And this is why it's actually worth noting earlier on when Tom is saying there's a war on boy and they're recruiting him. You're seeing like they're doing very similar things to what Harmony House was proposing to do. But in the case with Tom and Dane, they're taking their time and they're actually giving him time to get outside the culture, whereas Harmony House was trying to entrench him within it. And like, I'm going to invoke the name of Robert Anton Wilson here. It's just like you cannot engage with this in good faith while claiming to have a moral perspective. I've got a bunch of thoughts on this and I don't have them very well thought out and put to words, but it's that idea of just like, there are certain things you need to look at and try to be as neutral as possible in your assessment while you're looking at it. If you look at what Tom is doing here and you just look at it on paper, written out as a list, this is cult indoctrination.
Okay.
Like, let's not shy away from that because there is some very strong cult indoctrination. I think the thing that sets it apart from that is the fact that it's still ultimately about trying to get Dane to think for himself. And instead of like being part of the group, it's still always like, we're giving you the choice here. That is ultimately what it comes down to. Harmony House, they're trying to strip away the choice and get him to comply. The Invisibles are trying to get him out of the headspace he's been in. They're trying to break down everything that has, reinforced the rebellion that isn't a rebellion and get him to actually be able to think as a rebel. And decide then if that's truly what he wants to commit to. And they do give him a clock, but...
Well, also, Invisibles is the name on the book, so they're implicitly the good guys. So, yeah, why wouldn't they join them? We know Harmony House was the bad guys because they weren't called the Invisibles.
Yeah, like, there's that too. Like, what's the narrative reinforcing?
There's definitely a way to look at this narrative and really question, because the fact is that the Invisibles do have some very out there ideas. They are very destructive. You mean to tell me that King Mob blowing up a building didn't hurt a lot of innocent people. Not everybody in Harmony House, even people working there, were not implicitly ontologically evil the same way that we're supposed to take the Archons as. You do have to wonder, in the same way that you might hear from a lot of anarchist thinkers who have very like violent, destructive ideas, is like you have to question, is this the right way to go about it? There's a difference between acknowledging something is wrong and then saying, well, the answer is you just have to start shooting.
Harmony House is doing the implicit violence of smoothing brains and groins. Like, we're not doing anything outrageously violent with this. Like, we're going to make these things smooth. We're going to reshape this. And there's something in the language use that implies, like, because it's going to be science, that's going to make it acceptable. And then King Mob comes in shooting, and he does not smooth brains and groins. He rather does the opposite.
He splatters them.
Yeah, but like the fact that it's overt violence does not make Harmony House any less violent in its results.
Well, it's Foucault's docile bodies sort of thing, right? This way in which it's taking people and making them into, under the guise of helping them, right? Because it's a reform school, I suppose, or they're focusing on the idea that they're going to help you and society by making you somebody that is a cog in the machine.
And it's ultimately palatable violence, I think, is what I'm trying to get at here. It's just like King Mob, like, oh wow, he just shot that dude in the dick, holy shit. But like, that's exactly the same thing that Gelt was proposing doing too. I think even the name Gelt is related to gelding.
Well, King Mob also said a sick line. Gelt never said any sick lines.
Fine. As long as your violence comes with badass one-liners, we're cool.
Exactly.
I understand why the other mob would go to bat for King Mob for all the wrong things he's clearly doing. But I ask you, really, look at this from a somewhat outside perspective. We are going to put you in a really bad situation, abandon you on the streets where you have nowhere else to go. You cannot return home, so you have to stay here. Then we are going to introduce a friendly figure, a good cop, if you will, who is going to develop a rapport with you, and then he's going to turn the heat up on you after altering your psyche with the use of drugs and hypnosis and all sorts of other things. And then he is going to take you to the brink of death and imprint you with the new mission. Because we know better. We know what's good for you. Dane, what you're doing is bad. We need to show you a new way. It's for your own good. I know I just tried to drown you, but...
They're recruiting a child soldier.
Yeah. And like, again, both sides were trying to do this.
Yes.
So it's just like...
There is a 3 lines of logic to be followed that perhaps the Invisibles are not quite as lily white as this badge would have you believe. But we will for the purposes of this narrative, because as we have established, this comic is called The Invisibles. Let's run with the idea that they're the good guys for just a little bit longer. Say another 20, 30 issues.
Well, speaking of the badge, Dane has been holding on to it this entire time, and as we get closer and closer to Dane's full-on breaking point, he won't let go of it. And Tom calls him out on it, and it's the last thing he can call him out on. And what does he say?
It's a mirror. Look, what do you see in the mirror? There's nothing. Nothing. For the record, I always assumed that Jack was the one saying that in response, but is Tom supposed to be saying that?
I think it's Dane. What do y'all think?
Yeah. No, because the one word bubble coming off from the left.
Right. That's what I was saying.
That noise, fuck. And it's got this, his are the straight line, like clear circle. And in the past 2 panels, no. Because
yeah, it's only that one thing to give emphasis that he's yelling.
Yeah.
I think it's Dane. I think it's Dane answering his question.
You could argue that it's coming from the direction of Dane's previous bubble. So I'm I'm going
right.
to say that my intuitive response was that this was Dane answering.
It makes more sense being his breaking point where he's finally
Yeah, that's
admitting-
what I always assumed. But you know what they say about assuming.
It rides to Bethlehem.
Fuck.
You, me, and an ass on our way to Bethlehem.
You're taking me to Bethlehem?
If we can get through the rest of this, yeah.
Isn't Bedlam actually derived from Bethlehem?
I think
Jamie,
so,
can
yeah.
you pull that up?
because it's the name of the hospital in London.
Yeah.
So we get a nice close-up of the badge, which turns into picturesque white blinding sun. And we get the second immortal question of Tom. Dane, how do you feel?
Now, I always took this as Dane passed out at this point. It seems to be from the visuals in the previous that this is happening at night. And so I think the implication is he passes out and then he's woken up in the middle of the day with this blinding sun.
I
But
think he's been staring at the sun the entire time.
He can't see anymore, yeah. How do you feel? I'm blind.
I'm going to need those pigeon eyes again.
Okay, but that's not a feeling. So let's feel our feelings and not our physical sensations.
I do like that Dane's first response is wet because he's just like, yeah, I'm answering your question. My clothes are fucking soaked, Tom. Like, what do you mean?
A physical sensation. Yeah. This is Dane's moment of clarity. This is when all the walls come tumbling down. He says, I feel fucking amazing, man.
He says one thing before that I feel is really important to this narrative that we've been having. I feel all right. It's like E, but it's like real or something.
Yeah.
Real.
Yes, you're right. Well,
What's the E?
a television network.
I'll tell you when you're older.
It goes before I, except after C.
I'm going home now. I'm going home.
For everyone who has had a somewhat radical or turbulent initiatory experience, I'm not asking everyone to share their stories, but this is probably a familiar feeling for some of us. This is whether it is a hearty dose of psychedelics or a exhaustive experience that absolutely put you through the ringer, or some sort of easy to do with sex, quote unquote, tantric practices with sex. There's a lot of bringing yourself up to a great cathartic, and I suppose it can definitely happen outside of a magical experience, but
Yeah.
this is something that I imagine is familiar to a lot of us, where there is some sort of break, some sort of threshold crossed, and you are left. Now, sadly, it doesn't stay for the most part. I mean, there's always, you're never quite the same afterwards, but it doesn't stay. You never stay in that sunshiny day kind of feeling, but it should be a familiar one for a lot of us, as Osiris coming out of the tomb sort of thing.
Has anyone almost died before?
Yes, but it wasn't a good one. It was just it was more like, appendix almost killed me.
I mean,
Hey, I had that one.
those moments
Yeah.
of like something is going wrong in front of you. If it goes wrong in the right way, if it goes wrong in the wrong way, you will die, and then it doesn't, and you get that like moment of like, oh, like something big falling and stuff like that. Like that's
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh,
that's a good way to describe that.
That's
Not to talk about myself too much here, but I do have an experience where I almost died of dehydration and heat stroke, and very much like this. I was I remember
self-inflicted.
entirely self-inflicted. But yeah, the moment where you didn't die, and you definitely thought you were going to. It's a powerful thing. It's very much what's going on here with Dane, I think.
And the whole thing of going through the ringer, getting your literal shit handed to you by the universe, and then beginning to see from the other side, having like moments of clarity and understanding is something that I am going through currently. So very much so feeling like Dane right now. Not
You're doing great.
But yeah.
We love you.
I appreciate it.
I will give you Tom's advice. Cry when you must, laugh when you can, shout, scream, run, fly kites, live. And how does Tom choose to live, everyone? We're going to jump off that fucking building.
Yep.
And this is...
See that building up there? We going off it, bro.
The hermit drags him up the tower to accept death.
Hey!
Well, this is where I can once again go back to, from an outside perspective, you have taken a child, put him in an exceedingly vulnerable situation, kicked the shit out of him, broken him down mentally and physically, and given him a commission in this war. And what's the next step? Hey, come jump off this building with me.
So Tom is Batman, and Dane is Robin.
But the issue ends with him pointing out this building that we have seen again with this pyramid top, Canary Wharf, and he's telling him, we're going to go up this tower and we're going to leap off. To be continued.
It's interesting to juxtapose against earlier instances. Dane is always the one pushing the line and stepping past what the people around him think is the limit. It's just like one person's like, oh shit, Dane, maybe we shouldn't, and the other person's like, holy shit, Dane just took this way farther than I thought we would. And now we've got Dane in a situation where someone else is actually bringing him up to his own limit. Like, we have finally found Dane's limit.
It turns out Dane's limit is base jumping. Who knew?
You know, Tom, I was with you for a lot of this. You know, taking drugs in a subway, that was one thing. But I might have to draw the line at
suicide.
At objectively suicidal actions.
Suicide pact.
The fuck is this story, man?
Yeah, this is definitely the moment that all of this, because you already know it's a spooky story, you know that there's no way that they're going to jump off a building and die. But still, part of you, before you know what happened...
Dane and Tom both die. They're not in the book anymore after this.
This has all just been a long detour before we get back to Justice League, right? No. No, but it is, again, you know, because of the narrative that this is not going to be to an old man and his young ward, you know, plummeting to their death. But still, before you know what happens, it's very hard to think about what the fuck is going on here. It is the final gut punch.
And then after, it's even weirder.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't. Don't worry, folks. The next issue doesn't make it clear, but if you felt like you understood what was happening in the story so far, that's the moment where you're definitely like, well, okay, but how are you going to get out of this pickle?
Turn into a pigeon?
Maybe.
How can I top that? We will be right back after an ID from your local stations.
Of course he pulled guard duty. Stuck standing around guarding an unused room all night while Wilson is up there surrounded by drunk rich people. This could have been his chance to meet someone, get himself a sugar mama, never have to worry about working again. Stuck guarding this stupid, ugly necklace for tomorrow's auction. Who even cares about this Alexandra of Denmark? And who would ever spend that much money on a piece of jewelry?
Got a light?
A voice said beside him. You're not supposed to be down. He turns and he sees a gorgeous figure dressed in a Burberry coat over a vintage Chanel suit.
Darling, I got lost trying to find the bathroom, but honestly, I'm just trying to escape. These events are always such a bore. Do you have that light? I'm dying for a fag.
He paused, pulled a match from his vest pocket, and lit her long cigarette, watching the smoke curl, smelling the scent of rich tobacco. God, It had been ages since he had one. She popped one out of her pack and smoothly handed it to him. Thanks. How's it going up there? Been stuck down here all night, he said as he lit the cigarette, taking a long drag, feeling the smoke fill his lungs, the smooth, rich taste. He had no idea a cigarette could taste this good. These rich people really knew how to live.
Oh, you know, a bunch of stuffy old octogenarians all busy trying to outdo each other. Honestly, I have no idea how they all have the energy to do these parties. I could never.
She said, taking a long drag and ashing into her case. Wait, I thought you were with the party upstairs. If you're not, what are you doing? His head felt heavy. His hands were numb. He could feel his tongue like a sleeping bag in his mouth. His vision was blurry, and his legs started to give way.
Oh, honey, you flatter me. No, I'm only stopping to get myself a new statement piece. See, they say the Dagmar necklace is cursed, but really it's just a powerful talisman that can transport one back to the 12th century. With the right incantation, of course.
He tried his best to reach for his gun, but his hands were too numb to hold anything. He dropped to the floor, half conscious. All he could hear was her words.
So sorry, darling, but I must be on my way. I have a date with Hildegard of Bingen, and she's due for another vision. Anyway, hopefully I'll see you in another life. Maybe we can even get acquainted.
She kissed him on the cheek and slipped something into his hand. He had just enough energy left to open his left eye to see it. It was a blank white badge. Then he was out.
And we're back. All right. Continuing on with the final issue of the Down and Out in Heaven and Hell arc. We are treated not to a delightful base jumping excursion, but we open up on Tom and Dane behind the wheel of a large automobile.
But it may be base jumping because they are definitely speeding towards something.
Well, I also just want to bring up real quick the cover art for this.
Yeah, the cover art on this one was definitely some like metal album tier art.
Yeah, this could be an Iron Maiden album.
Yeah, very Geiger.
Oh, Geiger
very
too.
Geiger.
Yeah, very Geiger.
Megadeth.
It's Jack becoming part of the city, I think. He's finally locked in.
Trails of blue smoke coming out from his eyes.
And the large red circle in the back. Foreshadowing.
Oh, it's great. It's powerful imagery. If you saw this cover just on the stands when you were going through your local comic shop, it might get your attention.
Oh, that's the kind of thing I would have picked up not knowing what it was. 100%.
Like I said, we do open with an action shot of them speeding down in this fancy car, probably stolen.
Definitely stolen.
But then it cuts to just goofing around London still.
Throwing a frisbee. That's what the big red circle behind him on the cover is, I guess.
I wonder if that is actually an intentional little imagery of Dane reaching up, catching the frisbee perpendicular to the ground so that it does look like a big red circle.
It's possible.
He throws it, and him and Tom are goofing around. Dane feels it's almost Dane's happy for the first time, as far as we can tell. That's the first happy for the first time when he's not destroying something. Now he has stolen a car, so he might be feeling that high still. Dane almost seems childlike in this one.
He does. He seems like a kid for the first time. Well, I mean,
yeah.
a kid in the kind of innocent and jovial sense, not the Liverpool delinquent.
Young hooligan.
Yeah. He's doing a cartwheel, and then Tom looks to be having a beer and eating some chips. They're just having a good time. But Tom is still going on about the oddness of the altered perspective of the modern world that one might be able to find. He talks about the electricity pylons when the races that come after humanity go through, they might wonder what these pylons represented, these ancient powers, almost describing them the way that we might describe the sites of like Stonehenge and things like that. This idea of forgotten powers, of marked highways.
Speaking of which, Tom is also remarking at his own agedness at this point. He's making it very clear that his time has come. He has done what he set out to do now. He's going to give us his last hurrah, and he's going to go away. Something that's kind of unthinkable at this point. We, just like Jack, have been initiated by this figure. We've learned so much about the world we're inhabiting in this story from him, and he's made it very clear that I've done my work here, and I'm going to give you this our last moment here. It definitely feels like it's a goodbye that we're getting prepared for here.
But Dane isn't ready to let him go yet. He's like, nah, what are you talking about? This is crazy.
I don't think Dane even realizes that Tom's leaving. I think he's just like, oh, this is just more crazy shit that you're telling me.
Yeah.
Well, he thinks he's like, oh yeah, I get it, because he's talking about death as well, and Jack immediately assumes like, oh well, I mean, you're old, but you're probably gonna live a while longer.
Notable, this is actually the scene where he's told, hey, you're going to be Jack Frost, and he's like, nah, I'm not calling myself Jack Frost. I think we can take the initiatory experience from the last issue as that is when he becomes Jack Frost. That's when he becomes an invisible. Or at the very least, what comes next will be when he becomes Jack Frost, because they begin calling him Jack pretty quickly after this, the other members of the cell. But I do want to draw attention. Sorcerers have been warriors, Dane. We don't lie in our beds waiting for old death to come sliding up in his cap and bells. No, we go a-knocking on the bugger's door, and when he opens it, all surprised and sleepy-headed, we leap past and out. Now, the fact that he uses the word warriors, not an uncommon term, but in my Don Juan-addled mind, it feels very relevant.
Yeah, I made that connection too. Like, there's definitely some Don Juan stuff going on here.
For those of you who are unfamiliar with Carlos Castaneda's work, the final interaction and the final initiatory experience of Carlos Castaneda involves leaping from a great height with his teachers, but notably Don Juan. He says, the last time I ever saw Don Juan was when I jumped off this cliff, and he jumped off with me, and he was gone after that. That is a parallel that we will find in the next few pages. And here we see, as I've already demonstrated and pointed out, the Don Juan parallels, but right here he's equating sorcerers with warriors and talking about the confrontation with death, which is another notable Don Juan sort of teaching. The final battle with death, the final battle of the warrior.
And of course, as we've mentioned previously, the origins of magic for Grant Morrison very much line up with chaos magic, and Carlos Castaneda is mentioned, if not by name, definitely in technique and various ideas within the big groundbreaking work of chaos magic, Liber Null.
And that's one that I feel is missed, especially in this, as we've all woken up to the idea that there was no Don Juan. At best, he was an amalgamation of a lot of other people that Castaneda had interacted with. And I will also be the first to say that the longer the Don Juan books go on, the more it turns into nonsense, things that are not particularly useful. But I really do stand by going from maybe the first 4 books: Journey to Islan, A Separate Reality, A Yaqui Way of Knowledge, which is an awful title at this point because we all know, no, it's not A Yaqui Way. Oh, the final book is escaping me. Tales of Power, which is that is where the leap, as it were, the concluding instructions of Don Juan to Castaneda takes place. The 4th book, this is the 4th issue. Probably a coincidence, but it's good enough for me.
Is it though?
Well, all of the dark talk of death and Tom leaving is very... It puts you in a certain spot. I know I mentioned earlier when we were doing the earlier sections when we first meet Tom. I myself had a Tom O'Bedlam in my life, and it's a hard thing to see the people that you learn so much from disappear. This is a much better version of it than what I got, if it makes you feel any better. But
before we move on too far, I want to comment on there's this discussion of language that happens before we hit sorcerers have to be warriors. It's the non-identification with your emotional states and language as hypnosis. And, like the way the Irish say, I have a sadness on me, rather than identifying with the sadness, particularly as this relates to, Tom's impending death or, dealing with death. It's just like there's a lot of language as hypnosis kind of being commented on through these chapters.
And it only becomes more explicit as we go forward. You'll see it in some later issues. I do think it's notable that Tom is interesting in that he does, in the same way that he tells Dane, look in the mirror, there's nothing there, this sort of non-self, this sort of non-identification with things, right? Which is very Eastern in a lot of ways, but it is very much of the magical tradition. But he is someone who simultaneously says the idea of non-identification while embracing it. It's the idea of live, feel your emotions when they come on you, but understand that they are not you. They are things that come and go. They're things that pass through you. Oh, you feel them when you feel them. They're like the moods of Heidegger, which is I know some people at CMN that really enjoy Heidegger. So
I've never read them.
The Tim and Eric guy.
An interesting quirk that you just brought on, the two of you. We've made a big deal about the use of us that Jack throws out, which, to a certain extent, it's just a British sort of way of speaking. But you notice what Tom does that no one else in the story, at least so far, does. Tom refers to himself in the third person quite a bit.
That's true. Not only that, but also you notice he says he uses we, the use of language of identification, where it's not people do this, it's we. He's using language to instill not only in Dane but the reader that as a collective, this is how we function. This is how we experience things.
I don't want to interrupt you, but Tom's also quoting literally King Lear a lot of the time. And his character in King Lear is literally someone pretending to be an insane beggar. There's this other level of separation of character between narrative right there.
Even more interesting, the idea of identities within identities. The Tom O'Bedlam, Mad Tom as almost a cover for this magus, this initiator. And he's even foisting it on Jack, where it's like you are no longer Dane McGowan. You're Jack Frost. You're going to embody this name in the order. Now that you have freed yourself from Jack Frost as the demon, you're able to embody Jack Frost as the power. And Dane still goes, I'm not doing that, not in a million years.
Well, Dane's feeling really great. Dane doesn't want to. He's playing in the garden right now. He doesn't realize that he's about to be put to work.
Cavorting was the word that I wrote.
Oh shit, God about to show up and he about to punish my ass.
It's interesting that initially he's telling Tom, we've got to do something. We can't just live on the streets forever. And now he's almost like, nah, I could do this forever. Let's just throw the Frisbee around and we're going to live off of chips and gas station. Oh, I'm sorry. Petrol station beer.
We'll steal cars and have a good time.
Tom is like, I'm sorry, Dane, but it's too late for that.
One of the funniest bits was when Dane was like, hey, give me a bit of those shits. And Tom was like, fuck off. You don't like barbecue anyway.
You said you don't like smoky bacon.
Using your words against you. Oh, boy.
You identified with not liking smoky bacon, Dane. I'm sorry.
So now you don't get any of my crisps.
Well, we are treated with the last happy scene of the book. The entire book. We don't get a single more happy scene through the entire The Invisible. So enjoy it now, folks. They do something that Dane, he's Jack Frost now, but he's not a completely different person. He still loves blowing up cars.
And Tom scolds him affectionately.
Look, Tom, I have one hobby. If we're going to jump off a building tomorrow, let me do this. And Tom's like, all right.
Well, no, because actually Tom's very approving of it. He says, one last lovely explosion for me, then no more. He enjoyed it. He liked it. Hang on, where's the line? Bang goes another rich man's beautiful car.
Yep. I can't tell what type of car this is, but it doesn't scream rich man's car.
It's supposed to be like a Supra. In the 90s, like a Supra would have been like really expensive.
Tesla.
Those explode on their own.
Yeah, no, Dane missed the Molotov. He didn't even hit it. It was just a Tesla, and it did that.
It hit some salt
It
water.
wasn't even a Molotov. It was just a bottle. He threw a Coke bottle at it, an empty Coke bottle, and just does that.
Threw a Coke bottle and a bad look, and that was all it needed.
This is how they make the smoky bacon flavor. This is where the smoke comes from.
Cybertruck flavor.
Delicious.
But in all seriousness, we get this last little moment of violent, fun, action-y sort of things.
It is very much less sinister than the last time they blew up a car, because then Dane was like, hell yeah, and let's fucking wreck some shit. And now Dane's just like, I just like watching stuff blow up, man. Like,
Yeah, and even the implication of Tom is sort of this thing of like, it's maybe it's not the right thing to do, but it is just blowing up a status symbol of some banker, probably.
it is insured. He will be
Someone
fine.
who can afford to replace it.
Yeah,
Insurance will cover it.
Yeah, he'll be fine, Dane. Now let's go. We got a building waiting for us.
I do like that Tom says, you're a bad lad, Dane, but I'm glad to have known you. There is this acknowledgement that on a certain level, Dane is a bit of a shit. And even though he has learned to cavort, as it were, old habits die hard. They are preparing. We see a shot of Canary Wharf. They prepare with the blue smoke. Well, Dane does at least. Tom says, I don't need it. I have other ways of getting through. And he gives him a piece of paper, says, this is the address you need to go to when this is all over. So he's telling Dane, like, you're going to be, he's basically implying when this is over, you're going to be fine.
Did anyone notice that Dane's wearing the badge now?
Oh, no, I didn't.
I did.
Yes, it's pinned to his shoulder. Yeah.
Wait, I lied. We did get one more fun little scene because Dane says, "Nah, I'm not feeling it. I'm fine." Then immediately cut to Dane losing his mind on the bus, being like, "It's all full of shit and money and blood." And Tom's just like, yeah, kids are all on drugs these days."
Well, he's just like, I'm his keeper, his caretaker. Boy pisses himself. He's alone. It's just like Tom just completely undermining any credibility Dane might have with the general public.
It is interesting that this is a case of Tom turning off his madness, almost showing you that this is certainly an act. This is what he does.
No, it's a bit. Yeah, it's a bit.
We do, of course, see out the window that Dane is completely right. There's blood and shit and money running out of a fucking tube.
I always thought that was just Dane's hallucination. Like, I didn't think it was literal blood and money.
Well, I'm sorry. What part of is this real did you think we were playing about?
Fair
are
point.
dreams real or not?
They approach the tower. They walk up it. Everything's fine. No one stops them. He says, "Be invisible. We're going up." This shot of Tom holding a torch, it appears to be rolled up newspaper just lit, but I don't understand how they're keeping it blazing for that long. This shot of the torch being held up, the hermit imagery that we discussed, Tom holding the torch. You see this black and white, almost photo negative like cityscape, which I really want to know if this was someone taking a photo and then going over it, it is a really, really interesting shot to me. It's a really good one.
I feel like it's an old photo of London.
Yeah.
No, if I remember off the top of my head, the artist for the issue was really big into geography. So feel free to come back and correct me, but I think this may be something the artist for the issue was just I'm going to sketch out the London skyline from memory.
Fascinating.
Not to talk about the other Magick comic books that I enjoy, but it reminds me so much of the highly detailed backgrounds in Cerebus, the aardvark. It's completely out of place with the rest of the comic. It catches your eye. It's almost a shame that it's not a full splash page or something.
Right. And
we failed to remark on the dragon line that the Canary Wharf point is piercing, and because Dane, he's still glitching out. He looks up and he sees that the sky is weird from the dragon line, and the tower is causing an auric interference.
Oh, right. Yes.
This is why they're going up there. There's something magical, spooky woo-woo shit happening up at the top. And so this is why that has to be the spot that they jump from.
Right. It's another thing that Tom mentioned earlier while he was talking about the cities. And it's just sort of something gets thrown in the background when they talk about the pyramid on top of Canary Wharf. And again, Grant dropping the hints that we don't realize are about to be very important later.
Well, not only that, but it brings up the notion of places of power, which is not a uniquely Don Juan thing, but something that is emphasized over and over again. But also, for example, the Georgia Guidestones, before they were exploded by crazies, by
the wrong kind of crazies, radical right-wingers,
by machinery of the Archons. I notably went there one July 23rd and performed the rite of the Bornless One, Liber Samic. So for me, it felt very appropriate. This is a strange place of power to go to, so I went there in the middle of the night and I did it. But this is, that's a common motif with a lot of spooky woo-woos.
Well, and it feeds into the whole concept of the magic of cities itself.
We get back to that concept of magic of cities again here too. Tom offers Dane the torch. Dane is off his face because of the blue mold. And then Tom says something about the city advertising desires at us, but it's just pictures and it's time to wake up. And that is right preceding the jump. And this is the dream that we're living in. It's our sleeping dreams are just as real as these dreams that the city advertises at us constantly. It's those illusions of, you get this thing, you have these things, you fill your house with the right kind of stuff, and you will have people who love you because you have the right things. You put all these things together and your life will be beautiful. And that is the dream that we are constantly being sold.
I can get on a reality TV show, and then I could go on to become president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
That is certainly a dream that's been advertised at us, isn't it?
Well, not to point a finger at the rest of us, but as I look in my lovely little office / altar room where I do all of my spooky stuff, I look at all of the spiritual commodities that I have purchased, all of the little statues and tapestries and items and things that I bought with my money playing the game of the Archon. No, it's all right. I can just do my job. I can go to work, and then I can put all of this in a little room and have my spooky magic-y experiences, and that is the same. That is a-okay. It's fine. I can compartmentalize it all and put it all in a little box.
You can accessorize your way into communicating with your holy guardian angel.
I can have this great magical enlightenment. I can wake up from the dream, and I don't have to change anything in my life.
Does this spark conversation and knowledge with their holy guardian angel?
Well, it's no different than can I decide that I'm a part of an invisible cell and give myself a nice little code name, and it's not going to bleed into any other part of my life. It's going to stay right here on the Discord. It's going to start it'll stay right here in the podcast.
Let's start summoning elements and see how that completely doesn't affect any other area of our life.
It can all stay the dream, right? It can all stay the little pretty images that we're sold on. It can all stay. It's not. None of it's real, right? That's what Dane told us. You can't touch it. You can't hold it. But it's time for us to wake up now. And part of waking up is the saddest moment of this issue. Possibly the whole series in some ways. Goodbye, Dane. You've never trusted anyone in your life before. Trust me. Jump out of the dream. Trust me now and jump. Do you trust me? Give me thy arm. Poor Tom shall lead thee.
And then they jump.
Can I just say the art of them falling is just so badass because Tom's just like, what?
He's so graceful.
I'm Batman. And Dane's like, what the fuck?
Dane is not
Like,
Batman.
You can tell that Dane's just like flailing and Tom's just like, all right, this is it.
Yep.
Tom went straight down.
Tom is leading the way, holding the torch, and Dane is flapping in the wind. We have to respect him enough for jumping. No one has to tell him he's got to be brave once it happens.
Dane releases his torch almost immediately. Like, it's gone between panels.
Yep. He said it, though. He was like, you're going to kill me. But
he does
he
it.
did it. He trusted Tom. It's the first time he trusted anyone in his entire fucking life.
Hey.
We should all be so lucky that we don't get fucked when that happens.
Yep.
And then Dane lands where? It's
Do we even know?
It's an odd landscape, technicolor lights, shifting colors, and he just lands somewhere in a field almost, and he's just going, oh hell, what the fuck? And then
Fucking hell.
staring at this large red orb floating over his head.
Hey. There it is again.
And then you know what happens next? You know what's really interesting? The orb goes from red to orange to green, and then he bolts. And that is stop, wait, go from the abduction scene earlier.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he certainly goes.
And then fuck this.
And he goes just riding past. There's this large scarecrow that shows up in the back, which I don't have anything to say about it. I wish there has to be some sort of reference that is being here. Perhaps like in the cross shape reminiscent of the totem of the Under London, something like that.
It's Tom's coat.
Is it?
Oh, yeah.
Looks like it to me.
Looks like it, yeah.
We're treated to some lovely action shots. Things just go. Dane rides and rides, and he is met with this cosmic sight of a planet, very like Saturn-like planet, these large rings orbiting around it.
Tears streaming down his face.
Yes.
Well,
and he's just...
what's the planet typically associated with death, people? Come on, get your astrology and your Kabbalah together.
Pluto.
The sun.
It's Uranus.
Oh.
Because your ass is dead.
As quickly as it happens, in the same way that Dane and Tom would be walking and all of a sudden the hieroglyphics would give this visual cue of entering a magic space, Dane is now back in the world. He wanders through on the city streets looking at this address, walks into a building and opens on a classroom. The chalkboard that says Big Brother is watching you. The cry of the Orwellian dystopia of 1984. Everyone knows it. Among other things, he sees King Mob's headdress and then the hunter's garb from earlier, and then a grenade with the word smile across it. And then King Mob telling him, school's out. Dane's initiation is complete.
Dane doesn't take it as well as you'd imagine. He's kind of pissed.
Wouldn't you be?
Yeah.
And he calls out all the things that we just said. You just dropped me on the street. I'd probably be dead if it wasn't for Tom. What do the good guys tell us? Well, it's for your own good. We got to do it for little assholes like you.
We know better. And we see King Mob. He asks where Tom is, and they say, Tom's gone. Why do you care? And he opens up. He says, like, because he was all right. He was my mate. He was my friend. It might very well be the only real friend that Dane ever had.
And what do we get for it? Ragged Robin just writes him right the fuck off. He's like, oh yeah, that's nice. Everybody needs friends. I'm Ragged Robin, by the way. I'm nuts.
Yeah.
And then we're introduced to Boy. You start seeing all of the familiar faces. You realize all of these people have been orbiting around. The secret is out. And then we get introduced to Lord Fanny.
Yay! We love Lord Fanny, don't we, folks?
Yep.
And they're saying, all right, it's time now. You're part of it. You're in here. It's a man's life in the Invisible's army.
Think you can hack it?
There's a brief pause. You see Big Ben. There's a call. I'm not sure who's supposed to be doing this call. It's not someone we see. It's not it's not any of the notable ones afterwards. It's just some vestige of the Archons, but they do mention Orlando, who's going to show up in the next story arc. They're calling in someone to handle this because they know that the boy has slipped through the boy being Dane has slipped through their fingers, and there's an invisible safe house somewhere in the area. So they're like, all right, we're going to call in the big guns. Try not to leave such a mess this time.
Oh, and then we get the obligatory, like, well, I have a cabinet ritual and we're going to be up to our knees in blood and cum and, you know, your typical Bohemian Grove type Illuminati bad guy conspiracy shit.
He'd mentioned that the what happened to Harmony House sent shockwaves to Rex Mundi and the Lost Ones. And, like, this is the first time these have come up.
It's the first time we get a named person. Well, I guess we got the King in Chains, right? But
Yeah.
I don't know when does the phrase Archons of the Outer Church first get said, because it hasn't been said yet.
spoilers.
Wow.
Yeah, geez, dude. I don't know what that is. How dare you?
It's not your place to say, Sunday. At any rate, we do get mention of a Rex Mundi. If
World
you guys
King.
know,
Yeah.
it's a Laverna. You're the Latin person.
Yeah. King of the world.
King of the world. Who's the king of the world, people?
Donald Trump.
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leonardo.
Too fucking easy.
Oh.
Both of you, too fucking easy. Go sit in timeout. The adults are talking.
Leo did Trump for you. Donald DiCaprio.
This was beneath me.
Worst egregore you could possibly make. Why would you do this?
The world was a mistake.
There's mention of the Harmony House incident sending shockwaves all the way back to Rex Mundi. And then they mention that they've located an Invisible's safe house and they're sending their people on the way now. They don't seem particularly confident that they're going to catch them, so they're enlisting the help of this Orlando. And there, like I said, there's the mention of we'll all be up to our knees in blood and spunk for at least the next 12 hours because I have a cabinet meeting. But they do say, Orlando, please try not to leave such a mess this time. So we know that the war is still on and things are going to be moving very quickly. But in the midst of this, Dane isn't sure if he's going along with this or not. He's confused about everything that's been going on, all this weird stuff. He accuses them of fucking with his head.
Tell me why you did it and let us go. We've got that reification of the us again. There's still a plurality at work.
And Dane says what is probably the most fascinating and damning line of this entire arc. All that jumping stuff was just shite, wasn't it? Those things I saw, I was tripping on that blue mold and I just imagined it all, didn't I? You lot were just fucking up my head. And what does Mob say in response, people?
Now, here's my problem. This panel does not do this bomb drop justice. Because King Mob looks him in the face and says, "There's no such thing as blue mold, Dane. There's just moss on the walls of an old subway station under the ground. You can't get high on it." Are you kidding me? This is it's insane to that the understatedness of this panel. He's just smirking and everybody's just sort of, all right, whatever, yeah, of course.
It's exactly what's happening to Dane right now. The craziest thing in the world that he could be told is that, oh yeah, no, none of that shit. The blue mold had nothing to do with anything. That was just we were just fucking with you. That was just fucking with you. That was just to get you in the right mindset. Because clearly the only way you were going to believe the shit that you saw is if you thought you were on fucking drugs.
Blue mold, red herring. Everything that happened to you was real. We're trying to unfuck your head. And then Ragged Robin gets a psychic impression. Something's coming. Myrmidons, we should move. Now Dane has a choice. He's like, I don't know if I want to join. He says, you joined a long time ago. But if you don't want to come with us now, if you don't want to find out more about what this is all about, you're free to go your own way. You just might survive. Otherwise, this is your last chance. This door only opens once. You just have to ask yourself if your old life as a slave is worth clinging on to and weigh that up against the chance of becoming free in ways you can't imagine. The old Dane McGowan died in that fall, and you know it. You can sit by his grave for the rest of your life, or you can join us and be Jack Frost. You've got about 30 seconds to think it over. And here we see, like I said, this is the initiation that happened. This is the conferring. Dane is gone. Jack Frost is taking his place.
The last panel was literally Jack running through a door.
Wait, hang on. And then we finally see a sad shot down that, one day you'll go down that tunnel. Tom gives his last soliloquy or whatever you'd call it, to one more Shakespearean playoff as he wanders off, leaves his torch behind and disappears into the darkness.
And it is the tunnel that he was talking about early. When they were first looking at the blue mold, he says, it's not for today, but for later. And here we see him going down that tunnel himself.
Party's over. All's well.
Tom was only hanging on just long enough to set Jack on the path. He did his job and he disappears. And it's very, having read this over and over again, the archetypal character of Mad Tom really is something that resonates. I mean, if some of us have had a real Mad Tom in their life that was sort of this oddball initiator that really warped their head, but we've had people that have played Tom for us in our lives. The initiator as, like I said, that archetype, that presence. And this is the last time we really see him. He shows up a little bit later.
His presence is felt, yeah.
But this is the end of the line for Tom. And
it's sad.
He's done his job. You know, in a way, they do touch on who Jack is replacing. They mention John of Dreams no longer being a part of the cell, but in a way it's odd because Tom, who is an old warrior he's run the race, he's fought the battles, he's taking himself off the board. And in doing so, he has set Jack on the board. One in, one out. In the next scene, we see the Jack boots smashing through the door. These hooded figures, it's really a great look. It's like I remember reading something about fiction, how it pivots from killing people to like killing robots. But another clever dodge is creating these enemies that are faceless and interchangeable. The stormtroopers of Star Wars are probably a good example of this. But it's these ideas of by hiding their faces and just showing them as these sort of cliched shit kickers with guns, you don't feel bad at all when they get...
No, sometimes you cheer it on when they get killed off because you're like, fuck yeah.
Tom already did a great job of explaining to us that they don't have to be robots. Like, you know, they don't have to be Cybermen looking motherfuckers. They're just as much robots. They're here to be a cog for these...
Yeah.
For those who would rule the world, as they said.
Rex Mundi.
And the fact that they talk like people and they probably have families doesn't change that.
The word Myrmidon, which shows up, is actually a word that means a follower or subordinate of a powerful person. It's one who follows unquestioningly. And its origin is the Myrmidons were the soldiers commanded by Achilles. So
interesting.
Yeah. So it has its origins in Greek, but it does mean like a blind follower. So these Myrmidons come in and they say, oh shit, they're not here. They're gone. And the blackboard has been modified to say, Big Brother is watching you. And then it says, learn to become invisible.
One of my favorite lines is the guy that goes, they were just here. I can fucking smell them. Like,
how can you smell anything in that fucking mask?
Because these are hardcore operators and they're like, we're trained killers. Like, they literally just left. But then we get the twist.
Well, there's no doubt that the Invisibles, at least Jack, probably smells fucking awful.
He has been on the street for about probably like a year at this point.
I thought Tom smelled fantastic.
Well, no, they did. Actually, no, Dane got a bath earlier.
I'm sorry. That was beneath me. They shouldn't make a joke like that. But they do get a nice surprise where they see there's a grenade. Oh, there's no pin. Get out. Get out before... And we see the smile bomb, the smile grenade, close up, and then it ends.
And that's it.
Hey.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was Down and Out in Heaven and Hell.
This coupled with the opening issue, what do we think of this story arc as a whole?
I genuinely believe that this could have been it. You could have ended this entire thing right here. And it still would have been worth reading.
Yeah. If nothing else got made and this was just like a standalone thing, 100%.
If DC or Vertigo was like, Grant, this is really cool and all, but we're done with it, it still would have been worth being made.
I think it would have made people insane. I think it would have had, similar to as it is now, it would have had a very peculiar, extremely hardcore fan base, like, okay, but what the fuck happens next? You cannot... How dare you stop there?
In a certain sense, it would lead to a lot more of what we're doing now, I think.
Yeah.
Even outside of the jovial jokiness of what we're saying here. But I mean, you know, I don't mean to belittle what we're doing or whatever anyone else inspired by this work has done. But could you imagine like Tumblr? Like if this was it, you'd have so many people having their role-playing invisible cells.
Oh, God.
Invisible's Tumblr?
Speculations, the fan theory.
Oh God, yes, you'd have so much.
So much shipping.
Monster King Mob Yuri.
Oh my lord. All right.
Why would you say that? Why would you say that?
Because I spent time on Tumblr.
Sunday is actively shaking his head and regretting everything that we've done so far. So back to the real point. I genuinely think that this is I struggle to say that this is because I when I say this, I don't mean to say that the rest of the comic isn't worth reading or anything even remotely like that, but like it's so hard to top this. It doesn't miss a beat. There's not a single panel out of place in this first arc. It's truly a testament to Grant's ability to drag you into a story.
And it works.
If The Invisibles is truly about altering the consciousness of the reader, if it is the idea of an act of shamanic terrorism, as Grant describes, if it is initiation through the form of fiction, you would be very hard-pressed to find a better way to open it. The character of Mad Tom, the wisdom that this character imparts, the method through which we, in Dane's place, are taken into a world that is magical and mysterious and introduced to this war that is going on, the forces of enslavement and conformity versus the fringe, the radical, the magical. It is hard to top. I've read this a great number of times, and I've said I've picked up parts that resonated with me and read them over again and then dropped it without reading through the full thing. I can't tell you how many times I've read the first 4 issues like this. This is a very, very strong opener, and even just as a comic, just as like narrative, right? This is an incredibly powerful opening. This is if you needed to introduce a world where it's the way that you are drip fed bits of information, whether it's about the war between the Invisibles and the Archons, whether it's about the introduction into this magical worldview, it gives you just enough, and there's just enough punctuated moments of, oh shit, oh God, this is weird, that it leaves you wanting more, and it leaves you a little bit different afterwards if you're ready to internalize that sort of thing.
I'm not sure if I want to bring it up in this episode or not. I guess I will. It kind of follows the same story as V for Vendetta.
You're really gonna compare Grant to Alan Moore?
Yeah.
No.
I think this is dangerous waters, dude.
Elaborate.
You're going to draw the Archons.
Elaborate, dear.
I mean, you have the, kind of, naive, not wanting to deal with reality person that gets taken in, gets taught the ropes and everything like that. Massive themes of anarchy and systems of power and control and stuff like that. Heavy occult themes. Just saying. The character eventually learns at the end, but this keeps going and goes to much better places. And that's not talking smack on V for Vendetta. I love V for Vendetta, but it does hit a lot of similar points.
I'm sure you could find parallels in the next few issues as well, actually.
Yeah.
Well, they're also both stories that are products of the times. I mean, V for Vendetta came out earlier than this, but they're also kind of drawing off the same, I guess, cultural zeitgeist.
Well, and there's throughout story, there's usually some person who's part of the out group who, one way or another, they're somehow being initiated into an in group. And there's a learning process, they're the proxy for the audience. They're learning everything through this person who's been oblivious up until this point.
Dances with wolves.
Yeah.
And there's usually some kind of breakdown of, the way you thought things were. And then there's, the denial of the call to adventure, which is, classic Joseph Campbell.
Monomyth stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Obi-Wan. I've got to go study at Takeshi Station or whatever Luke told me.
I got a deal on what the fuck was it?
I have to get some power converters at Tachi Station.
That's it. Yeah.
This is a great example of the way in which Grant Morrison is someone who understands stories. He understands narratives. You mean to tell me that Grant Morrison wasn't familiar with the monomyth? You mean to tell me that he doesn't understand No, he clearly, Grant understood this stuff. He understood the way in which introducing a character who is the out, who is the uninitiate, and bringing them in is a proxy for the audience. And in a way, looking at who reads comic books? Arguably by the time we get into the 90s, the demographic probably shifted a little bit. I don't think it was 12, 14-year-old street toughs reading comic books in the same veracity that they did, but it as having a young adolescent rebellious kid being the focal point from which someone is introduced, it makes perfect sense. And then understanding the way that you use narrative and then saying, all right, well, how do I take this narrative as a magical act of I'm able to pull you into it, and you are in a way living vicariously through this character of Dane McGowan, and I'm going to bring him through the initiation. I'm going to take you along with it. To the point that when you hear like I said, that bomb drop, to me, I really think that there's a, somebody said this part should have been a splash page. I think that you could have ground the flow of the pages to a halt to really emphasize that there's no such thing as blue mold. That's, that goes off like a gong. Well, at least to me.
But like I said, I think it's supposed to be, because it is what Dane's experiencing. Dane doesn't have time to process that. Dane's getting that dropped on him. And then what happens immediately afterwards is oh, hey, we got to get the fuck out of here. And Mob's not going to sit there and
better go.
You got 30 seconds. Come on. You too, reader, have 30 seconds. Are you going to take this with us, or are you going to sit here and stare at the page for another 5 minutes? No. You want to know what happens just as well.
In a way, by the end of these 4 issues, you know whether or not you're an invisible.
Yeah.
And whether that means that you simply are taken in a lot easier than the average reader into a very fanciful idea.
Didn't Morrison have something to say about how part of the purpose of this story was to make it feel like, it's, for one, it's a hypersigil. It is intended to act as an initiation process. But in addition to that,
Morrison said the intention of this was you would understand the secrets of the universe if you read this book.
You should be able to come in as an initiate. If you make it to the end of this part, then fuck it, dude, you're already in, you joined. And I think what I'm trying to pin down, there's this common trend, and we see this in Game of Thrones, we see this in The Matrix, we see this tendency towards elevating someone into messiah status. And so far, that's not what's happening with the Invisibles. I haven't gotten very far, so I don't know if this ends up being kind of like a mark getting missed. But the person who's using the protagonist as a proxy isn't being told, you are, now proxy to a messiah figure. Eventually you're going to be distanced from that. It's no, you can be part of this too. We're in this together. We need you on board. It's teamwork. And I think, from a narrative perspective, we don't get enough of that in pop culture.
I'll read the quote again real quick because I read it at the beginning of part 1. One of the things we should be trying to bring out in this idea of the Invisibles as a group to which anyone might belong. Involve the reader in the whole process by making him, her, realize that she too can join, has already joined the ranks of the Invisibles. If that was what was being strived for, this first 4 issues really does a bang up job.
It really does come back to that, you joined a long time ago sentiment. It's just like, there's no question anymore. You're already in. You're here. We've gotten this far. Let's fucking go, dude.
And you too, dear listener, reading along with us, you joined a long time ago.
You wouldn't be here if you hadn't.
At patreon.com.
Which is why you are paying us $5 a month.
Oh, boy. But no, for real, if you've gotten this far along, it's probably because you've been reading along with us. Perhaps you've already read this story and you want to see how wrong we could possibly be. But I don't think that you would be in a position to argue that you have not at least taken a step into the ranks just through this experience. Whether that's the experience of reading it or the experience of hearing us extrapolate and speculate about it as we've gone through. And we would really hope that you will join us and read along for the next, 50 so issues?
Years.
Yeah, this might take a while.
Any closing thoughts?
No, I mean, I feel like it's been summed up pretty well, and just this is such a good introduction.
It's fantastic. And to be fair, we are not going to spend the entire time singing the praises of this book. There are criticisms that can be made.
In fact, that's sort of why I wanted to point out how perfect these first 4 issues are.
It starts incredibly strong.
Well, and because we will, as great as this comic is, there are points of criticism to be made, not just from a standpoint of it as a magical work or from the occult ideas it's expressing, but also from more grounded writing standards. But that's something we'll get into later. For now, this is untouchable. I struggle to think of a 4-issue or even just the 3 issues of Down and Out and Heaven and Hell. I struggle to think of a more perfect 3-issue arc of any comic, let alone one that has such a profound effect on the reader.
Agreed.
Death on Gwen Stacy.
Not even close.
Also, it was only 2 issues.
Well, as we said, we hope you've enjoyed this exploration. We hope that you will continue reading along with us as we go through the next story arc, which is Arcadia. We'll hope to hear from all of you soon. But in the meantime, the Jack Frostcast is a production of Chaos Magic News and KHOS out of Cairo. This is Harry Sunday reminding you that the pen is mightier than the sword, but it doesn't hurt to shake a spear. Does anyone else have a pithy line they'd like to go out on?
The party's over. All's well. We will see you all next time. Thank you for listening.